Hey, welcome back, everyone. Ms. Brotherson, you have some resolutions for me?
The council moves into open session at 10:57 p.m.
Good move, please. Councilor Hurst, Councilor Lewis, all in favor, that's carried.
That council receives the confidential report regarding security of the property of the municipality or local board, and that's in relation to municipal property. A confidential report regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and that's in relation to the volunteer of the year nominations. And that council receives the confidential minutes from the previous closed meetings. That's the April 16th, 2025 closed meeting.
Good move, please. Ms. Lewis, Ms. Breda, in favor, it's carried. And I believe next is the WDD. I will see you later.
We are just waiting on the applicant and their engineer to join, but I can begin with the brief overview report if you'd like. Is it okay to do that with that then? Okay. Yeah. So, the purpose of this report is to provide council with, an update regarding outstanding, items for the WDD Main Street zoning bylaw amendment application. Steps that have taken place since our last meeting, have just been with relation to the block 23 environmental protection lands. So staff did have a meeting with the Conservation Authority regarding opportunities for co-management. And it's staff's recommendation that conversations around the development of trails occur through the Parks Master Plan update. It was identified by the Conservation Authority at a rough estimate that maintenance of the trails would range between $50,000 to $100,000 after the trails were to be installed. So in order to receive public feedback and comments about the proposed uses, that is staff's recommendation. And then we also received comments from the County of Wellington with respect to council's requests around any impacts on street parking relating to the reconstruction of the retaining wall, as well as potential opportunities for traffic calming measures. And so the county did provide comments to council, as well as comments related to the comments from a member of the public at the April 16th public information meeting. And those were attached as schedule B and schedule C to the report, and the applicant also provided the comparison for Main Street and Back Street accesses as requested by council. We do have our traffic consultant on the line and available to answer questions. We also have our planner present.
Meeting the traffic consultant or as an applicant presentation as well, or registration. Yeah. Okay.
So there's two issues here, Madam Chair. First of all, is one is with respect to the environmental lands, and the second is with respect to traffic. Do you want me to talk to both, or would you like me to do one of it?
I think it's fine to do both together.
Okay, sure. So with respect to the environmental lands, I would support the township taking them over and using them as a use at your own risk type of thing until such time as we decide what to do with it after the recreation plan is done. But I would coach it to say that subject to receiving the full amount of the full dedication fee. In other words, we'll take it over, but we still want the full parkland dedication fees from the homes. And also the staff also put in their thoughts with respect to fencing the backyards to separate the two areas, environmental from the residential. So I would agree to that. With respect to the traffic issues, the two concerns for me, one is the Main Street access, the sight lines with respect to item 6 of the report. It's the consultant at the public meeting indicated that they reviewed the Main Street access, and they indicated that it's substandard. So I would like to see if there's available a number for the sightline distance from Main, and then looking east, and then we know the back street looking west is approximately 185. So I was wondering if we can get a comparison between the two. Wondering if I can address that to the consultant.
Good morning. It's Will Maria with GHD. Yeah, to clarify, so with respect to sightlines, I will say that there are a few methodologies to be used to calculate the sightline assessment, and depending on the height of the object, taillights, headlights that you are measuring. So I will like to clarify, just for that sake, that using the county's design standards for sightlines, which utilize the 1.3 meter height of standard height of a vehicle, that the available sightlines at Main Street are approximately 180 meters, I believe, and that was measured from the issued for construction or approved for construction drawings that we received from the county, not based on a field measurement, because when we went out there, the Main Street access was not contemplated as being the access that we were looking to support. So we measured in the field the back street and Badenoch Street intersection to confirm that there was sufficient sight lines at that access. But using the approved for construction drawings, there's approximately 180 meters of sight line available from Main Street.
And just for the record, what is it from Back Street looking west?
So from Back Street, measured in the field, approximately 136 meters was the measurement I took.
And last question I've got is, I had a contact from a real estate agent wanting to sell 7537. I wanted to go 36, and I passed it on to Courtney. I assume that she passed it on to you, Kaylee. I believe you also had overtures from the real estate agent. Do you have any feedback whether or not there's an intention to consider that at this time? Was that sort of water under the bridge?
Hi, good morning, council. We did get that correspondence from that real estate agent. At this time, we're not interested in looking at acquiring additional properties. I will just note the site is not actually adjacent to any of the proposed development areas, and would require development within a significant woodland, which we do not support at this time. We have not completed a detailed analysis of this property because we do not own it and it's not part of the application.
Thank you. That's all the questions.
Thank you. Consider first.
Thanks. Yeah, I think Councillor did a good job of knocking those out.
Yeah, I did have a similar question on the County Road 36, kind of just a status update on that one, so I appreciate the feedback, Kaylee. Yeah, in terms of the block 23, I think the only thing I can add there is there any anticipated cost to the township, or is this just a transactional process where the lands are assumed? Like I see in the report, there was potential costs associated with developing trails and what have you, which I think is quite clear, and I think I'm in support of accessing the land and then leaving it to the Parks Master Plan to ultimately, you know, put a vision in place. But what I wasn't clear on is there any transactional costs associated with taking on block 23 beyond what Councillor Sepulveda?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm not aware of any additional costs that would be required for the township to make that process, but I'm happy to take that away and provide an answer to the council. There would be minimal costs upfront related to signage, just in relation to marking the property as you use at your own risk. But I'm happy to take that away.
Yeah, I think that would be just helpful to know. You know, I'll leave it to staff to generate a report. Beyond that, I think everything that I was looking for has been covered, so thank you.
I had one question about, in terms of the recommendation from staff, there is a recommendation for fencing to be added by the applicant along where the developments meets, I guess, the natural environment. I also wanted to inquire about requesting fencing to be added. When I'm looking at this map, I believe it's what's being called lots 15 and 19. Those side yards are adjacent to what would be the baseball diamond. And I was wondering if we could inquire about having fencing added there as well, just to limit visitors of the park going into the two backyards there, and well, vice versa is okay, but that was just one point I wanted to bring up. And the second thing I wanted to ask about, actually one other thing I wanted to ask about, Councillor Sepulveda asked about the comparison of the sight lines, the actual hard numbers, comparing the main street and the back street. And just for the benefit of the public, I was wondering if that sort of hard data could be entered into this comparison chart that we have in our report, so that the public can sort of look at that and digest that as well. And the third question that I had, and I'm not sure who might be able to answer this. I actually drove through there yesterday, and I was looking at where Back Street, currently there's a corner, but that Back Street will go straight. It will end up going straight to sort of the back part where the development is. And where that sort of unopened road allowance is right now, there's a house on either side, and one sits significantly higher up in elevation than the other. And I know we do have some grading plans, which I myself don't really understand how to read, but I just want to ensure that both houses on either side of what will be this new extension of Back Street will still have continued access. Each of those homes have a sort of lower garage. And I just want to make sure that each of those homes will continue to be able to access those lower garages, because I don't entirely understand how that grade is going to be sort of leveled off to ensure that they both would still be able to do that. I'm not sure if that's something you can speak to here today or something you need to come back with.
Perhaps I can provide just a couple comments. I'm not the civil engineer, so probably can't provide detailed grading comments to that. But part of the civil engineering package did include the proposed grading and reconstruction of the full back street, that north-south version there. And that's been in discussions with township staff, and I don't believe we've received any further comments to be addressed, but it would be also reviewed again through the detailed design, through the subdivision process. So the actual paved surface will be shifting with that reconstruction, so it may not be as close as what it is perceived as perhaps today, because we are moving the paved surface of that road easterly. But that is something we can take back and, you know, through the detailed design process, make sure that we're respecting the existing grades on those adjacent properties.
Statement in the report says that staff recommended a public meeting to review the detailed designs, including details of back street redesign, be scheduled prior to approval of subdivision agreement. The question of our clerk, do we need to have a motion with respect to that?
Through you, Madam Chair, staff have included that in the revised recommendation for council's consideration.
Great, thank you.
Anything else to consider? Okay, so just to make sure we have, the acquisition of the natural environment lands, subject to no reduction in the parkland dedication. And, you're gonna look also at, any transactional costs that are coming with that. And the comparison of the actual feature. And the fencing, as well as the, requesting a public meeting before the detailed design. And subdivision.
That report PD 2025-008 entitled WDD Main Street Outstanding Items to Receive for Information, and that council state its intention to acquire block 23 through the draft plan of subdivision approval process subject to the following conditions. That the developer pays the full parkland dedication fee for the proposed subdivision, and that the developer through the draft plan of subdivision be required to install fencing to delineate the public lands from the private properties. And that council requests that the applicant amend Schedule A of the report to be provided to the public to include the sightline distances for the proposed back street and Main Street access. And that council directs staff to schedule a public meeting prior to the approval of the subdivision agreement in order to provide the public an additional opportunity to provide input on the application.
You remember that to review the detailed design of the back street?
That council directs staff to schedule a public meeting prior to review of the draft plan approval of subdivision, to review the detailed design of back street in order to provide the public with an additional opportunity to provide input.
You think we should add something about the grade of to maintain existing grade of adjacent properties or that?
I would think that would come through the drawing, and then if there's any issues there, then we can bring it back and say, let's not accept it.
Okay. Any common positions? The resolution, okay, mover, Councilor Lewis, second, Councilor Sipulis, all in favor?
Yeah, consent agenda.
That council receives the consent agenda items for the May 7th council meeting to seek information.
Can I get a mover, please? Thanks, first, Councilor Lewis. All right, items to be pulled out. Anyone? Councilor Wolf?
That's 6.11, April 16, 2025 council meeting minutes, and 6.1.2, April 16, 2025 public information meeting.
So the second one was 6.12. Okay. All right, Councilor Hurst.
I hit to 6.13, the ISCO electrical assessment. And 6.16, the Cambridge official plan rezoning.
Councilor Greta.
And I have 6.22, annual professional municipal clerks week.
So we can receive the remainder of those, all in favor? That's carried, and Councilor Lewis, 6.1.
Okay, the first item is the April 16, 2025 minutes. We had an item last time, a presentation by City Golf regarding the Southwest Gulf Water Supply Environmental Assessment. I'd like to mention that our household received a letter from Source Water, which forwarded a letter from the City of Gulf notifying us of the water testing. So we're in the 1 kilometer away, and sure Council has received one as well. And the second one relates to item 10.3 of the minutes. County of Wellington automatic speed enforcement, project 4 and 5 update. So morning, Mr. Mayor, if you can give us an update what transpired at the county council.
Yeah, I can do that. So, as you're aware, at the committee level, we added in that, some wording that staff, when developing the capital projects for the next year, that they take into consideration, the source of the electronic speed enforcement ticket revenue. A roundabout way saying try to spend the money in where the tickets are being generated. There was a motion at county council to amend that, remove that wording, and then add in that the staff look at Roads Master Action Plan. They've done, county have done a safety study for road improvements, which included signalization, roundabouts, and so essentially added 2 or 3 documents to support the capital projects where this money would be directed to. And it was very much so received that we were asking for the money to stay in Wilson only. That was not supported. I tried to explain to them that that was not the case. We were just saying, just take it into consideration because we have some capital projects. And there was further amendment and also a deferral asked of at the county level for the report to give member municipality CAOs an opportunity to comment on their position where the money shall be spent. That was not successful, and so it went the way of the amendment that was proposed by Mayor Davidson, which I understand. And we want it to be based on reports and previous studies and things of that nature. I thought that the openness of what was proposed at committee just highlighted to the community that we wanted at least some consideration of where the most tickets are being generated so that we could tell the community that, we're addressing the concerns of the stigma that it's a cash cow, that it's all these other things, that it just wasn't supported at the county level by Councilor Wilson. So that's where it landed.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, is there any reports from us?
I feel we should still advocate. We had a couple project suggestions. I think we should still ask that they be considered for the future. But I would maybe look at staff at, when that's appropriate. I don't know if we need to do a study or.
One of the CAO knows, or I should say, knows when the CAO will have a meeting with the other CAOs, and maybe that could be the trigger point when we respond back to county.
Through you, Mr. Chair, staff can take that away and follow up on next steps.
I think we just continue to advocate for improvements in the area, and if they don't choose to do them, then we deal with it at that time. But a little disappointing. I'm not gonna hide it. So thank you. So how do you want to do it? You want to do 6, 11, 12 receiving for information, and then move on to consider items. Right. So
I got 6.12 as well.
oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
6.12, that was a public meeting. There was one resident wanted a side-by-side comparison between the Main Street and the back street entrance onto Wellington Road 34. just want to mention that the email was sent to the resident, but a person table will be prepared and presented at this council meeting, and it was included in the package, so just for the record.
Thanks, we'll receive those for information. Can I get a mover and seconder? Mr. Pearson, Mr. all in favor? Excellent. So Councillor Hurst, 6.1.
Yeah, the IESO report, I went through it and the township was within the geographical area of the study. There was very little reference to the township within that, and it occurred to me when we're going through it, we're also going through our employment plan study. And electrical infrastructure moving forward, I thought would be something that I would hate for it not to be included in a larger sector study, with the note that we're going through this process and we'll get to an end point at some point between 2025, is to make sure that is part of that IESO study within the region, you know, Kitchener, Waterloo, Guelph, Cambridge, that gets incorporated at some point when we complete the study. So I maybe just recommend that, you know, staff monitor that, and when we get through that process to follow up with them, because what I wouldn't want to have happen is when we go through this employment land study and then we realize one of the significant barriers is access to appropriate electrical infrastructure in the chosen area. I'll leave it at that. It occurred to me that it didn't get captured in their study, not that it should have, but we have concurrent activities going on, so I wouldn't want that to be an impediment in the future. 6.16, just the city of Cambridge. I just noticed in the correspondence, they're going through a comprehensive zoning bylaw and amending their official plan. And the two occurrences that thought would be applicable, because Town Line Road is adjacent to the township, if there are any significant changes in the zoning on those properties that are adjacent to the township, the staff should at some point be engaged around what the impacts are. And the second one would be is if there are any changes to water permitting from the city of Cambridge that has draw wells that impact the township, that also be considered. So I think it's more just a monitoring process from my perspective, but if there are changes taking place in an adjacent municipality that have consequences on the township, I think it'd be prudent for staff to act accordingly.
All right, so I think that was a takeaway. If they weren't already, but it's all good. All right, so we're gonna move in a second to receive those two. All in favor?
Yep.
That's carried. I believe that just leaves 6.22 that Councilor Goyd pulled out.
Yeah, this is proclamation of annual professional municipal clerks week, and it is signed by Mayor Sealy, so we'll
Thank you. So we definitely enjoy and it's warranted recognizing our hardworking staff, especially the ones that chirp the mayor the most. And it's very appropriate. So I have a little blurb here to read that you can just bear with me. So it's an endorsement. It's the 56th annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week. It's May 4th to 10th, 2025. And what we have here is, whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of our local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas the professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality, impartiality, rendering equal service to all, whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community, whereas professional municipal clerk continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the professional municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organization. Whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishment of the office of the professional municipal clerk, therefore, James Sealy, Mayor, Township of Plissens, to recognize the week of May 4th through 10th, 2025 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our professional municipal clerks, Courtney Hoyfox, Justine Brotherston, Sarah Heater, and to all professional municipal clerks for the vital services they perform in their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent, stated today, May 25th. So thank you very much for all the hard work. I'll leave that with you. Again, thanks, great work, a lot of irons in the fire, and we had the BRNE mayor's breakfast the other morning, which I'll speak to later, but some compliments to staff were given there. It's fruits of your labor are showing, and very appreciative of making us a well-oiled machine. Fortunately, Ms. Whitefox couldn't join us today, but we have someone filling in for her, so we'll extend those appreciation to her at a later date. So if we have a mover in a second to receive that from Commissioner Council Schools, it's hers, all in favor? Excellent. I believe that includes our consents. What can we do? We have a hard start at 1, correct? So let's go. We'll start on finance 2025-02 if Mrs. Sands available.
Good afternoon, Council. So this report is called the Lease Financing Report as required under Ontario Regulation 65305 of the Municipal Act. I'd be happy to answer any of Council's questions.
That report FN 2025-002 entitled 2024 Leasing Finance Agreement Summary Report be received for information, and that council accepts the treasurer's statement that all lease finance agreements are non-material and have been made in accordance with the township's lease financing agreement policy as outlined in Schedule B to report FN 2025-002.
Can we move that? Mr. Hurst, Schools, any questions for Mrs. Sin on this one? Okay, all in favor? Carried. 9.2.2 temporary borrowing.
Yes, so this again is another report that's required in accordance with the Municipal Act. It's an annual report regarding our temporary borrowing bylaw in an extenuating circumstance if it's required. It hasn't been required in the past 11 years. However, it's just here in case for whatever reason it would ever be required. Any questions from council, I'd be happy to answer.
Any recommendation, please?
That report FN 2025-014 entitled 2025 temporary borrowing bylaw be received for information, and that council gives 3 readings to bylaw number 2025-049, being a bylaw to authorize external temporary borrowing of $1.5 million in 2025.
Mover, please. Schools, Councilor Hurst. Questions? All in favor? Let's carry. All right. Investment report.
Again, this is an annual report that's required in accordance with the Municipal Act. It provides us a nice summary for council in terms of our investment income and our investment balances year over year. I'd be happy to answer any of council's questions.
That report FN 2025-015 entitled Treasurer's Investment Report for 2024 be received, and that council accepts the treasurer's statement that based on the information supplied by McCord, Genuity Wealth Management, the cash and temporary investments held by the Township of Pleasant during the calendar year 2024 were all prescribed in accordance with Section 418 of Municipal Act of 2001, and were all eligible as outlined in Ontario Regulation 438/97, and that all related transactions in 2024 comply with the investment policies and goals adopted by the Township on August 13th, 2014, and that no changes be made to the policy on this.
Right, can we go move to that? Councilor Willis, Councilor Hurst, any questions or comments?
Just first one for me, and it's more just a question, Mary. The policy in your briefing note was last updated in 2014, and I guess it's maybe just a question for me is do you feel it's still accurate in terms of the content and the policy, and we're getting in that it's dated to a degree, and it was more just a question of you is do you feel that the policy at some point needs updated, or is it continuing to serve the purpose as intended?
So it is reviewed annually while we are drafting this report. And it was updated significantly in 2014. We did look at other policies when we did update it. I don't recommend that it be updated at this time because it is meeting our needs. But yeah.
That's fair. I think I just wanted to ask the questions. Thank you.
All in favor? That's carried. Joanna is, Laura, she's back.
She's just.
Investment that we just did. Oh, oops, do you got something in the back?
That's okay.
Sorry, I moved too quick.
The other one. The temporary boring by.
Yeah. Bring it back, she's still here.
That's okay. Not.
I had a question too, but I'm gonna keep it off. Ready, Laura?
Good morning.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to seek council's direction related to the notice of intention to designate for 880 Victoria, done in accordance with the priority properties that were identified by council in June of 2023.
Okay. You want to read the recommendation?
That report 80M 2025-018 entitled 880 Victoria Road South, notice of intention to designate be received for information, and that council of the township of Whistler state an intention to designate the property municipally known as 880 Victoria Road South pursuant to section 29 part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and that staff is authorized to proceed with the notice requirements as outlined in section 29 of the act and in accordance with the Township's Ontario Heritage Act alternative notice policy. And further, where no objections are received within the prescribed time period, the staff be directed to prepare and provide a designation bylaw for council's consideration and action.
Move it, please. Schools, Councilor Nurse, any questions or comments?
Just a question, we heard from the city of Guelph since this report was, heard.
Through you, Mr. Chair, staff have not received any comments.
Thank you.
Okay. It's carried. Building department. First quarter. Through.
Morning, Council. For you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to provide council with an update on the activities in the building department for the first quarter. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
That report, BLD 2025-202, entitled Building Department First Quarter Update, January to March 2025, be received for information.
Remove it, please. Mr. Hurst, Mr. Lewis, any questions or comments for Andrew? No, all in favor? Enjoy your day, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
So we got, should we do 10.2? Skip that. All right, who wants to speak to it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is an ERO posting related to a ECA approval for sewage for Red Ribbon Park in Whistler. Staff don't have a recommendation with respect to review of this application, but want to provide the council's information.
Okay. So to receive the information, can you move it, please? Mr. Lewis, Mr. Hurst, any questions?
Just one for me, and I think you answered it there. Did staff have any concerns with the application?
Through you.
Thanks. In favor? It's carried. 10.3. So,
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is a notice received from the County of Wellington with respect to their passing of County of Wellington Official Plan Amendment 126.
I'm gonna move a second to receive that. Mr. Boyd, Mr. Lewis. Any questions? In favor? It's carried. The residential development one as well. Okay, and we're second to receive that information. Mr. Lewis, Councilor Hurst, any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Lewis.
Yeah, I asked for a breakdown of, the third, rural allocation for Whistler. And I look at the numbers that we got in terms of, the overall future type of thing. If you look at, one of the tables, I think it's table B, we're looking at, somewhere in the order of, over, 57, 80 homes for the county total. And according to our table, our allocation of that is roughly, less than 1%, or I guess it's a bit more than that, it's 228. So there seems to be a big disparity. I can understand. You have urban centers and all that sort of thing, but it just seems that it's we're being shortchanged somehow on the numbers. I just feel that their allocation isn't more in proportion to the population that we have.
My understanding is, I could get this wrong, because I've seen a lot of these reports, but we had much more growth than that allotted. I thought it was in the 700 range, but then when you take into account the amount of severances that are existing, the potential growth in existing boundaries, the net left was 200 and something and change. And that's where they're basing, you know, the movement of the severance date is to accommodate that 200. So our growth was actually a little higher than that. But it's because we have, well, we had 200 severances. I believe the number is 78. They took into account subdivision expansion in Arkle. They took into account the Audrey Meadows expansion and WDP. And so they did all the math, and I think there was a net need of 200 and something.
Yeah.
So that's. And it's strictly based on the fact that we don't have needs for services.
Well, I understand that, Mr. Mayor, and we've been trying to get our date pushed back for the recognition of, or allowing more severances to occur in our township. And this is obviously based on your date.
Yes.
And I would like to continue pushing us to get help you.
And I agree with that. So the number, maybe that was the number, they analyzed how many properties could have a severance with the current date in place, and it was high. My argument to that was, well, the people haven't opted to do it. And the people that are willing to do it are likely in the secondary ag. You know, some of these farmlands would, yes, they have the potential, but they might not be the ideal spot. So I do believe we're going to see fruition of that date soon. And I don't believe we need to do anything more right now, but it has been a roller coaster ride. And this would lead one to believe that they don't need to move the date, but I continue to advocate that this council wants it adjusted. And Courtney and I, so I bring this back up through the minutes, because Courtney and myself met with senior county staff to discuss this report and the growth and the implications of severance in the severance state. So I do believe we're in a good spot, but until pen to paper, we'll stand. But I don't think we need more action. So.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'll hold off. We also want to get some more information. Do you have any timeline where you expect something to follow?
It's yeah, it should be by fall. And there's a big push out of here to get this date item resolved. So okay,
Thank you, sir.
okay, so I'm gonna move to seconder. Right, all in favor? It's carried. Wow, we're just cooking. Bill 5, I believe. What time is it? Yeah, we can move it going. Great. All right. So that's, do you want to read the recommendation? We'll get on the board.
That corresponds to item 10.5, about protecting Ontario brandishing our economy, we receive our information.
We're gonna move it, please. Councilor Hurst, Councilor Bliss. Councilor Bliss, you have anything to say?
Yes, I got several things to say. There's 4 EROs associated with this. There's 2 EROs I'm specifically concerned about. One is the Endangered Species Act. And what they're proposing is to water down protection for the species. First of all, they're suggesting that the SCA have the ability to arbitrarily add or remove species from the species at risk for Ontario listing. And the second they want to do is redefine habitat to only include rearing areas and excluding migratory and feeding areas. And the third thing associated with that, they want to remove the harassment from the act. In other words, if somebody gets all these permits and it's nesting season, they can go in and do whatever they want. And I don't think that's, being good, stewards of our wildlife.
Maybe I'll pause you at the endangered species part, we'll have a quick conversation about it, because I'm supportive of everything you said, but, and then instead of it getting, you know, I assume you have multiple items on the.
Well, I'm already finished with the species. I want to get into the economic act.
Yeah, so I'll just deal with species.
Sure,
part first
absolutely, yeah.
before we get to this. All right, so Councillor Hurst, thoughts on that?
Well said, Counselor. I think my only add-on to that one would be is if we had any correspondence with the conservation authorities within our municipality to coordinate an aligned feedback mechanism, because I think this is also really important to our space. We need to be collaborative, so, but I echo the concerns.
That's great. Yeah, I agree with this concern. So I feel maybe at the end of this, we could say that we support the councillors' opinions and positions, and then staff formulate a response to be submitted. Justine gave me a heads up that it's 17th, so it's ahead of our. Okay, so it's good for endangered species. Next part.
The next one is the Economic Zones Act. I looked at this from the point of view of how can this affect Portland, and to me, it may be designating future gravel pits as designated projects. You have all these other projects that the province wants to do, such as tunneling under the 401. Well, that's going to take a lot of concrete. It's going to need a lot of gravel. And the second thing is trusted proponent. They say proponent has to be trusted. So my concern is that the need for a specific project should be backed up by sound and up-to-date data and reports. This applies to gravel pits. Prove to us that there is a need for additional gravel pits type of thing in our area. And the other thing is the trusted proponent. It's got to have a step back point of view that shows up no recent infractions. We know we got some bad actors in our municipality, and certainly we would not want a designated project performed by one of these bad actors where they have demonstrated to ignore their own site plans. So that's my concern. I understand why the province wants to do it. It's for the issues raised south of the border. I understand that there's a ring of fire issue, but that's up to municipalities up there to fight. I'm concerned about what are we concerned locally that could be impacted by these piece of legislation.
Councillors.
Well said again. I think the only add I would have would be, just my feel is that it grossly overlooks municipal's role in planning and appropriate planning and processes. Almost jumps over it, and I just don't, I don't feel that's appropriate.
Great.
Thing I would add, and hope staff could reference, is that the province would have to demonstrate that it has addressed the Auditor General's report for the aggregate industry before creating more provincial oversight over a specific industry or creating economic zones. While I was on my forced break there earlier, email came through my inbox, and it's the Auditor General's report is out for go. Just prepared. Around MECP safety of non-municipal drinking water, and on a quick browse through, it's very similar to the report on the aggregate industry, lack of oversight, lack of inspection, lack of enforcement, all of these same narratives. And here we have a provincial government that wants to create special economic zones that they exclusively exclude, I'm going to put it, municipal bylaws. Well, you have two Auditor General's reports stating that you are not doing a good job managing the portfolios you have. You cannot support another portfolio that you will have exclusive jurisdiction over. But I hope that staff could reference these two reports and those concerns. And put clear language in there that a single aggregate pit would not meet the classification of a special economic project, as well as we do not. We're not supportive of Coastlange as a township being designated a special economic zone or something. You know, so then every stone can be dug up, but those are my comments.
I think Councilor Hurst's comments are very apropos. Those are beyond reach, it just bypasses the, process.
And did you have further?
Yeah.
The last it for Bill.
Absolutely.
Okay, so do you just want to speak to how those?
So for the resolution, that correspondence item 10.5 Bill 5 protecting Ontario violation or plan we received for information, and that council directs staff to prepare and submit comments for era of posting 025-0380 and era of posting 025-0391 in accordance with the comments provided by council in order to meet the timeline to submit comments.
You got a good feeling of, okay, and mover for that? Lewis, that's ours, last chance. Yeah, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. You need the resolutions. When did these have to be in by?
So, through Mr. Chair, they need to be submitted by May 30th. So council or staff are seeking direction from council on any items they might want us to provide in a report on May 28th for your consideration. Alternatively, if you have items that you want to add at May 28th, we can do it at that time and then we can submit for May 30th.
Well, Bill 5.
Oh, we need to back in up. Email, we need to send our concerns to email. We need email to get behind this Bill 5 nonsense. With their plug. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Mm,
But that to me seems to be the urgent thing right now. We're trying to find out some other things that we can do in the past. You have the issue of closure of concession 1 at Highway 6, improvements to Morrison.
yes, the beautification Morrison. Good one, and then closure, that's all one topic, essentially, MTO. Well, I'll just go first, this is where I spoke. Courtney and I had sorry, I'll back up. Mayor Greg Davidson of Mapleton has been working with MPP Ray to organize a Queens Park Day. And I believe it's first week of June, we're gonna go down and meet with several ministers. So we had a pre-meeting yesterday about topics and Courtney prepared, 3, and it was MNR, MECP, MMAH. And once we got into the meeting, it's clear to me that it's tough to align all of our asks. Like, we are experiencing way different things than they're experiencing in the northern part of the county. So we were trying to find some commonality in some of the issues, but my first thought, as Courtney and I chatted after the meeting, is we should use that document she prepared for yesterday as the starting point for our AMO delegation. So I would suggest that we just ask staff to bring those 3 items, because it gets the kind of the 3 or 4, and MNR is probably pretty clear. MECP was around liquid soils, proper enforcement, MMAH. Can't quite remember what she would pin for MMAH. I don't know if you remember. One thing yes, it was Omer's, and another one we'll discuss at the main team meeting is MBS. And my thought is, right now, the way it's pinned is, if there's, a lot that comes in that makes a cluster, the barn can't expand. Well, why don't we just make it as if you buy a lot in your farm, it could expand? Why have that restriction on the farms? Because it's gonna drive growth to maybe less desirable locations, because it's gonna impact this farming. Well, almost buyer beware. If you're gonna buy the last lot on a street and the farmer's gonna add 50 head of cattle, it's gonna stink more. So essentially I would sell it as a stop, give some relief to these farmers from MBS so that they don't exist in ones, right? So I'd like to have that conversation on the 18th, something to get with Gail, but
Are you aware of any issues like in, township with NDS and Congress? Because I see all the severances on, it's usually the severed lot has to meet the NDS calculations, and not the other way around. I'm not aware of any barns that want to expand and got issues.
so that's you're right, but it's, the lot causes the complication, so instead of it being on, the lot has to meet the MDS, how about just don't have a restriction? But we're seeing it more north of us, I'll be honest, there was a consent or application. This is another one, there was a graveyard beside the lot. And that was considered, one of the houses to make a cluster. But then the MDS was a concern for this, it was basically an infill type situation, but the MDS to the barn was basically, it squashed this consent. It was right in the middle of a whole bunch of houses, it would never be farmland, it made sense. But if it went in with the cemetery, that's a cluster, then the barn couldn't expand in the future if they ever so desired. Well, that's where my thought came was, well, how about just let them have their consent and say the barn's gonna expand in the future possibly. Instead of handicapping both, so. Long answer is not a lot in Plissage, but I've seen it on the community, more in the northern parts, right? So.
I would say, not imminent here, but province-wide, it's a big issue.
So, and maybe there's not an appetite for buyer beware because of the complaints it could be driven, but I feel it's at least worth a look and a discussion around our table of something you can ask for. Councilor Hurst? Any ideas? Sure, you have lots of ideas, but I may need for email.
Well, I've never been before, so I maybe don't have a good perspective, but I think what's important in this municipality is the MNR interaction on aggregates, not let that whole Highway 6 transportation corridor. You can't not take the opportunity to have that conversation on behalf of the community. So those are my two.
I was gonna, similar to Councilor Hurst, we just had our breakfast the other day for economic development. And that was one of the commitments, was that we're gonna continue to advocate for the bypass. I know it feels like we're always having this conversation, but maybe now that the Conservatives have been reaffirmed and reelected for another 4 years, now's a good time to talk about that again. Got a strong mandate to reduce interprovincial barriers, so maybe there's there to it. I know I've been hearing a lot again about the talks about this underground tunnel. This should come first
Yeah,
anyway. Just
and hopefully people get it. Okay. Good.
So that corresponds item 10.6, email request for delegations, open for January conference, we received information, and that council directs staff to prepare a report for council's consideration at the May 28th council meeting regarding the proposed delegation topics for council's consideration. Impacts with respect to Bill 5, beautification of downtown Morriston, and the potential closure of concession 1 on Highway 6. Aggregate accessory uses and long-term uses, accessible management, homeless, and minimum distance.
So. Let's get started. Okay, move that, please. Split. First, all in favor? It's carried. We'll go right to 12 and then we'll break. That'll work. Actually, we need to do this. What I already done. Yeah. Except for the OPP. Let's just break now. So you want to come back quarter to one. We'll do years updates and other things and get into the OPP.
We'll back up quarter to one.